Grab yourself a coffee and pull up a seat because today I'm teaching you how to play Tesseract from Smirk and Dagger Games. I'm Mark Maya and this is Board Game Guide. Six days ago, the Tesseract appeared in the sky over the exact magnetic north of the planet. It was the size of a city block then, but since, the mysterious cube has been collapsing in on itself, and now it can fit in the palm of your hand. It's up to you and your team to contain this reaction before the Tesseract completely collapses and the power it releases removes us and our planet from existence. In Tesseract, you and your friends will have to work together to contain the power of this cubic menace before it's too late. To do that, you'll take cubes from the Tesseract, combine them into sets or runs in your lab, then transfer them over to the containment board. And when the last space on the board is filled up, you win. But you'll have to do that before the last die is removed from the Tesseract, or this breach track reaches 7. Because if either of those things happen, you lose. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that all the components seen in this video are from the prototype version of the game and do not necessarily represent the final product. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to play a 1 to 4 player game of Tesseract. And as always, if you're looking for a specific section of this video, check out the index in the description below. The first thing we need to do is assemble our Tesseract platform. To do that, take the 2 platform legs and slot them together like so. Then place the assembled legs on the platform board, the Lazy Susan, that's this plastic spinny thing, on top of that, and finally choose a base plate and place that on top. For this video, we'll be using the base plate with the number 1 indicated here in the center. Once you have your platform assembled, make sure it's in easy reach of all players. Use the included setup sleeve to build your Tesseract. Place the sleeve in the center of the platform so that it lines up with the square on the base plate, and fill it with random handfuls of dice. Make sure to take your time with this and fill 1 layer at a time before adding more dice to the sleeve. Once completed, slide your sleeve off slowly to reveal your Tesseract. Now, place the containment board along any of these 3 sides. The location you pick should be one that gives all players the best view of the containment board. What's important is that you do not place it in this indented area here. This needs to remain clear. Once the containment board is in place, shuffle the containment cards and place them face down in these 6 empty spaces. You can place the remaining containment cards back in the box. Next, separate and shuffle the research cards into 3 face down piles based on their level and color. Set the breach board nearby and place the breach token on the 0 space. Then give each player the following: 1 lab board, a randomly selected researcher, and a level 2 research card from the top of the stack. And being that this is a co-op game, you can keep any cards you have face up on the table. Next, players take turns removing 1 of the 4 available corner cubes, rolling it, and placing it in their lab. Once everyone has a cube, take all the remaining corner cubes, roll them, and place them under the matching zone or zones in the primed area. Now this does mean that in a 2-player game, you'll be placing 2 cubes in the primed area, and in a 3-player game, you'll only be placing 1. In the case of a 4-player game where there wouldn't be any corner cubes remaining, take a single corner cube from the next layer down that has the lowest value printed on it. Roll it, and place it in the primed area. When playing a solo game, follow all the same setup instructions we just covered, but treat it as though you were setting up for a 2-player game. Then the single player will just bounce back and forth between researchers as if they were playing the part of 2 players. Now at first glance, some of you might be looking at these cubes and wondering, how do you read these crazy shapes? Well, it's a lot easier than it looks, and there's no memorizing involved. Just simply count the number of pips on the faces. I bet you're feeling silly now. I know I did. Okay, the first thing we need to do is determine the starting player. Ideally, the player most familiar with the rules should be the first to play. But if you all feel pretty equally matched in that department, then the player who last checked the time will be the starting player. Before we dive into the rules, I wanted to emphasize that communication among players is vital to your success. So feel free to talk strategy, show each other your cards, and plan your next move, because if you don't, no one is getting out of this alive. Tesseract is played in turns clockwise around the table, and on your turn you could perform any 3 of these actions. You can choose the same action multiple times if you want, or 3 different actions. It's completely up to you. Although any research cards you have you can play for free, but we'll talk more about these a little later. For now, let's go over those actions and what they do. The remove action allows you to take a cube from the Tesseract and place it in your lab without changing its value. So if you take a 6, you keep a 6. When selecting a cube from the Tesseract, it must have 3 or more visible faces. So in this example, I could take any one of these cubes because they each have 3 or more visible faces. But I couldn't take these cubes because I can only see 1 or 2 faces. And it's important to note that cubes with only 1 or 2 visible sides cannot be interacted with in any way. Adjusting a cube means increasing or decreasing the value of that cube by 1 in either your lab or this primed area. So I can change this 3 into a 2 or a 4. But this adjustment doesn't wrap around, so I can't change this 6 into a 1, or this 1 into a 6. But in the primed area, and only in the primed area, you can decrease a value 1 cube in order to destroy it. And when you adjust any other cube in the primed area, up or down, make sure to relocate it to its matching zone. The transfer action allows you to move a single cube from your lab to another player's lab, or a cube from their lab into yours. But whether you're taking or giving, make sure to get the other player's permission first. Study is a great way to get more powerful research cards. When you take a study action, discard 1 of your research cards and take a research card of the next higher level. Contain is the most important action you can take, because each time you contain a cube, you're 1 step closer to winning the game. To contain a cube, you first need to have a valid set or run in your lab. 3 or more cubes of the same value make up a set, and 3 or more cubes in a consecutive sequence like this one make up a run. But in either case, all cubes that make up a set or run must either be all the same color or all different colors. And keep in mind, you're free to rearrange the cubes whenever you want. Just be careful not to change their values when you do, because accidents happen. Once you have a set or run in your lab, use a containment action to take any 1 cube used in that set or run and add it to the available space on the containment board that matches its color and value. And as a bonus, if there's a cube in the primed area that also matches in color and value, you get to destroy it for free. But you only get to do that once per cube contained. So if there were multiple cubes that matched your contained cube, you only get to destroy 1. After you've contained a cube, you have the option to re-roll the remaining cubes of the set or run you just used. Or you can just leave them as they are. But if you do re-roll the remaining cubes of a set or run, you'll also get a research card of a level equal to the number of cubes you rolled. So in this example, I rolled 2 cubes, so I get to take a level 2 research card. Taking a unique action means something different to each player, because each player's unique action is unique. A player's unique action is based on the researcher they were dealt at the start of the game. What your unique action does is explained on the bottom portion of your researcher card. This top portion here details your researcher's always-on ability, and it doesn't require an action to use because, well, it's always on. During a player's action phase, they may play any number of research cards they have on hand as a free action. These cards can be played before, during, or after taking an action. To play a research card, simply resolve its effect and discard it. There's no limit to how many research cards you can have, but there is a limit to the number of research cards available. This means once one of these decks run out, you can no longer gain any cards of that particular level. Once you've performed the 3 actions for your turn, we move on to the threat phase. The first thing you do during the threat phase is prime the lowest cube on the Tesseract. This means taking a cube that is located in the lowest position on the Tesseract, rolling it, and placing it in the primed area under the matching value icon. If there are multiple cubes tied for lowest, take the lowest cube with the lowest value. If there's still a tie, pick whichever of those lowest cubes you want. After the threat phase, your turn is over and play passes to the next player. Unless you're playing a solo game, in which case it just passes from one researcher to the next. If priming a cube causes there to be 3 or more cubes of the same value in the primed area, a breach occurs. When this happens, advance the breach token 1 space. And remember, if the breach token ever reaches this final 7th space, you lose. Other in-game events might trigger a case where you have 3 or more cubes of the same value in the primed area. And if that happens, it will also cause a breach. The exception to this rule is if a researcher causes 3 cubes of the same value to be present, in which case no breach occurs. This can happen when increasing or decreasing the value of a cube with an adjustment action. If removing a cube from the Tesseract, for any reason, reveals one of these images on the base plate, you've triggered an event. When an event is triggered, resolve it right away. What each event does is explained here on this event key, and it's very possible that one event will trigger another, or even cause a breach. So it's in your best interests to make sure they stay covered up as long as possible. Okay, so uncovering events under the Tesseract is bad, but on the other side of the table, you do get bonuses for covering up rows and columns on the containment board. A column consists of 4 spaces displaying the same value but in a different color. Rows, on the other hand, are made up of 6 spaces, each with a different value but all the same color. When you fill up 2 spaces in a single column, you get to reveal the containment card associated with that column, as indicated here. At this point, you're only revealing the card. You don't get to use it just yet. When the 4th and final cube is placed on the column, the player who placed the cube takes the containment card from that column and places it next to their lab. Now the card can be used. But unlike research cards, any player can activate this containment card during their action phase. Although once activated, the containment card is discarded. When a row on the containment board is filled up, players may choose a destroyed cube of any color, roll it, and place it back on the Tesseract. Note that when returning a cube, it can't be placed anywhere that would cause the Tesseract to be more than 4 cubes high. As you play Tesseract, you're going to come across a few terms that I'd like to review with you now. When you're told to set a cube, it means you can change a cube's value to anything you want. When a cube is destroyed, set it aside in a destroyed pile. There are a few abilities that will cause these cubes to re-enter play. To invert a cube, simply flip it over to the opposite side. When relocating a cube on the Tesseract, you cannot change its value. nor can you place it anywhere that would cause the Tesseract to be more than 4 cubes high. There's only one way to win in Tesseract and 2 ways to lose. If you fill every space on the containment board, the game ends immediately and you win. Congratulations, you're not only geniuses, you're heroes. But if 7 breaches occur, which are tracked here, you lose. You also lose if there are no cubes left on the Tesseract at the beginning of the threat phase. And that's it. I hope this video helped, and I hope you enjoy playing Tesseract. See you next week. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.